Hi, I'm Michael Polozola with the LSU AgCenter, and today we're going to take another look at the cool season annuals that we got started last time. When you look at, a lot of them are doing real well on establishment. They've stayed a tad bit on the wetter side than I prefer because we've had a little bit more rain events. And with that, this is a good example of what can happen. We planted this in a group of 3 and it had an issue where it died back. I would say if you're going to do any large planting, make certain that you get extra plants to replace any gaps you might have. So what we're going to do is we're going to refill this, and it should catch up. We're catching it early enough. It'll be a little behind, but these are also further developed, so it'll fill in because we got them at about the same time. So not a large loss. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in this gap, and this is not something unusual. Don't feel like you're a bad gardener if you lose some, because pathogens can happen and you're going to need to replace things every now and then. So we do want to be a little bit delicate in how we take these out and squeeze the bottom a little bit, and you should be able to pull it out in one swoop like that. And putting it back in here, you look at that good root development we're having. Because I got this at the same time, which is a good idea for getting that extra one to fill in any gaps you have, fits in just about the same. You can barely tell the difference in time frame, and it has better root development than the ones I planted because of that earlier. And I put it in here, and you can't even tell a difference as far as this goes, and it will catch up. In fact, if we look at it, this one's even taller than the one we had here and better developed. So just a good rule to have if you're going to do a large planting or even a small planting and multiple pots. Just get one extra 6-pack or a couple depending on the scale of what you might need to fill in. In worst case scenario, you don't need them. You can give it to your friends and they can get a start. So now I want to look at fertilization of our cool season annuals. That's something we're going to want to stay on top of. There's several different options you can use. You can use a standard liquid soluble one. Check the rating, make certain it has adequate nutrition and how often you need to apply it. Because I'm growing in containers, I'm going to apply fertilizer just a tad bit more often than I would in a soil-based substrate. And probably the 2 that I end up using the most with my ornamentals are Triple 13, which is a nice, well-balanced fertilizer, and then Nursery Special. Nursery Special has a lot of the micros in it, and I like to use it because it's easier for me to apply it in a granular state than having to mix up a lot of liquid soluble fertilizer. But both are great options to look at. And occasionally I hit it with calcium nitrate. Calcium nitrate really is a great one for your vegetable and fruit production. Not as critical for ornamentals, but if I'm going ahead and fertilizing with it with some of my vegetables, I may go ahead and just keep going with ornamentals. But normally I tend to do Triple 13 and Nursery Special for my ornamentals. There's a lot of other options you can look into. Please check with your extension agent to see which might be the best one for you to look at. Now, since I'm fertilizing more often, probably about every 1.5 to 2 weeks, I like to do it in smaller doses. This #1 Scott scoop here. And I just kind of broadcast it out like this around in between the plants. You want to make certain not to put it on the surface leaves of the plants because it can cause some burn injury. Make certain you apply fertilizer out with something like this. It can be anything as long as you're not grabbing it with your hands. It can really cause little burns and cuts, and just generally not good to handle fertilizer directly with your hands if you have an option to use something like a small scoop. And right now we're going to transfer over and look at why it's important to stay on top of your fertilization regimen. Okay, so this is why you want to stay on top of your fertilization. So this is a Snapdragon that I kept over the summer, and it grew real well, but towards the end I was not keeping up with my fertilization, and it started to have some deficiencies. And it takes longer to correct a deficiency than it would be if you just kept up to date and kept it fertilized all along. So I put a little bit more fertilizer on this plant than I did on the others, just to help correct the issue and it can get back to happy. You can see the whole plant had looked like this earlier, and in the last application this got what it needed and is a nice solid color, and I am hopeful that with this next application this will meet with it and get there. So another important factor to consider with your cool season color is deadheading, and that's a practice where you remove old blooms to encourage it to continue blooming. And it's more than just moving an old bloom, because we can see here where this old bloom fell off, and this doesn't look like much, but this is where it's attempting to make a seed. And if you leave that, the plant will say, well, I'm just going to develop this instead of making more flowers. So you really do want to go through and pinch something like that off. And I'm going to go through here and pinch off a lot of where that's happened to encourage the plant not only to flower more, but also to grow more, because sometimes they will be content at their size if they're already are setting seed. So it's both a good practice to encourage it to grow and to flower for you. This one is still getting some usefulness out of it, but since I'm going ahead through here, I'll go ahead and take it out just to keep myself from having to go back again. And this is just a good practice to do for a lot of flowering plants. Now there are some, and this is going to happen every now and then, you're going to take a few leaves off by accident. Don't let that worry you. It'll be okay. The plant will recover. And this will continue growing for us because it's still quite small, even though this is a miniature Snapdragon. So I'm not wanting to go too quickly, but we do want to go ahead and remove those flowers. And look at what we took out from there. That's a significant amount. It shows it was definitely worth our time, and it will be a good idea to do this every few weeks with your plants.